Yep.
Hey there, welcome to our session, and we hope you're having an awesome time at JiraCon so far. My name's Craig, and I'm the marketing lead for our app portfolio at Appfox, and I'm delighted to be welcomed by two of my colleagues here today, Tom and Akshar. In the next 45 minutes, we'll be covering a session focused on the future of Jira administration, and we're going to be sharing an exciting new product with you today that we believe will fundamentally change Jira administration in the cloud and become a must-have tool for every Jira instance. But before we get there, we need to set the scene first and take a look back at the journey to the cloud and why it's important from a Jira perspective. We'll then shift gears into Jira administration and explore some of the challenges that admins face and how our new product aims to address a number of these. And then before closing out, we'll share some of the top tips and best practices that can help you as a Jira admin working in a cloud environment. If you have any questions throughout the talk, we're aiming to keep 5 to 10 minutes free at the end to ask any of these questions to our speakers. So we'll cover that then. And finally, part of the presentation today will focus on the popular Atlassian marketplace app, Optimizer for Jira. So be sure to visit our booth during the course of JiraCon for a chance to win one of several 12-month free licenses to Optimizer, which is a huge cost saving. You've got to be in it to win it, so stop by our booth in the exhibition hall. And with that being said, let's dive in. So over the past few years, as many of you will be aware, the discussions around the cloud and moving to cloud environments has definitely picked up pace. And it's fair to say that cloud first is no longer just a buzzword. As predicted by Gartner, over 85% of organizations will be embracing a cloud first strategy by 2025, and this trend is here to stay. Atlassian is also on this journey, and this was most notable with the news in late 2020 with the sunsetting of Server. With this big shift towards cloud, it's clear that Atlassian are heavily investing in this area, and this is evident through new features, performance improvements, security enhancements, and obtaining a number of certifications and compliance standards for different regions around the world with their cloud products. But what does this have to do with Jira administration? Well, as Jira admins, you are the key. As organizations invest significant time, money, and resource into their cloud environments, Jira admins play a critical role in ensuring their teams can maximize the benefit of Jira and that organizations can get a return on their investment. So in this next session, I'll be passing over to my colleague Akshar, who will be sharing his experience as a Jira administrator and put this into greater context for you. Akshar, over to you.
Thank you, Craig, for the introduction. As a software consultant for an Atlassian Platinum Solutions partner, I've had the experience of working with a wide variety of clients as a Jira administrator and a project administrator. Sorry, I believe there's a message if it's been started early. I believe you've started on time, if I'm not mistaken. But and I'll be sharing some of my experiences as some of the challenges faced as a Jira admin. But truly to understand these difficulties faced by a Jira admin, we first need to understand the different sort of goals that Jira admins need to have in place or need to have when setting up Jira instances or maintaining instances. Next slide, please. So now, next slide as well, Greg. As a Jira admin, we need to ensure that our instance is well structured and is maintainable. So in case we have a new Jira admin, or if we are going on to another instance, it's easily maintainable. We also need to ensure that the site is performing at its optimal performance and is easily usable by different users. And as a Jira admin, we also need to ensure that different stakeholders are satisfied with the business requirements that we've implemented on their instance. But is it that easy to do? These are some of the, as a Jira admin, we face a lot of challenges on a day-to-day basis. And I've enlisted 5 of the common challenges that I've experienced, and I thought I could shed some light on with my experience. And they include customization versus standardization, which one to choose when creating new configurations, how to keep your instance with a scaling business, ensuring stakeholders are kept happy, and also ensuring that the site, your site is healthy, from doing a full visibility of your instant health to cleaning up your Jira instance. To start off with, the first question is customization versus standardization, and which should you choose when creating new configurations? Now, best practice suggests, next slide, please. Best practice suggests that we should standardize wherever possible. However, this might not always be the case because there's no one shoe size fits all type solution. Customization does come with its benefits that it helps satisfy unique business process requirements. However, there's a big drawback with that. For instance, if we have a change that has to be implemented instance-wide, we need to ensure that each customized change that we have created is also taken care of. For example, we had a multinational insurance company, one of our clients, ask us to set up their entire Jira instance. And this involved setting up multiple projects, sort of collaborating with multiple teams with their independent business requirements. And they did require custom workflows, configurations, etc., because inbuilt Jira functionality just couldn't handle those business requirements. And after we set up the entire project, about 6 months to 7 months down the line, they asked us to set up a new process throughout all the existing configurations that required the ability for users to list new tickets with the new team that was joining the company. And for this, we had to go back in and we had to set up, go to each of our customizations and then set these processes up. So it can be challenging for Jira admins to maintain, and it does require a lot of time and resource as well. This, however, is not the case with standardization, for that matter of fact. With standardization, we share configurations across multiple projects. However, with this ability of less administrative overhead, there also comes the problems or challenges that we have when setting them up, because we need to ensure that we have one solution that meets all business requirements. So we need to ensure that we take into consideration all requirements and make sure there's no conflicts within the requirements as well. For example, I set up the HR processes for a UK-based charity organization quite recently, which involved setting up 2 to 3 projects on their Jira instance. And I created shared workflow configurations, shared issue schemes, and shared permission schemes. Now, this was quite easy to maintain, which is they appreciated it because the HR team consisted of 12 to 20 people. And so if they needed to make a small change, the small change could be done instance-wide. So it was quite easy to maintain for that small team. They didn't need someone like us, a specialist, to come in and help them out. However, this also reduced the scope for any future custom changes if they wanted to do the change isolated to a given project, because they would need to get someone like us to come in and sort of separate that project from the shared configuration and create their own new configurations. So that's where you get the question of whether you should choose customization versus standardization. And it's a very important question that Jira admins need to do when introducing new features or when maintaining their Jira instance. Moving on to the next problem faced by Jira admins is when you scale your instance, or when you have to scale your instance. As businesses grow, so do the number of users, and also with the increase in users, so are the number of issues being created within your instance. One of the key problems with that is, for example, your queues get overcrowded, your reports get overcrowded, and how do you deal with them? In the client that I mentioned earlier, the multinational insurance company, they initially asked us to create a project for 20 to 30 people. We created them with complicated and complex automation rules. And then I think it was a couple months down the line, with the success of the project, they wanted to open the project up to the entire organization, which was about 1,000+ users. Now, with the influx of users came in with the influx of issues and the use of those automation rules. And once the automation rules throttled, functionality started to break. And there are many other concerns, but this is one of them that Jira admins need to consider when scaling your instance. Moving on from scaling your instance, you have managing stakeholders, where, next slide, please, right? Where you need to, when I mean stakeholders, I don't necessarily restrict the term stakeholders to the people that give you requirements, but it can be including those business people that give you requirements, to people that own the product, to people who own the business, to agents in your system, and also to the users that log issues within your system if it was a service desk, etc. And as a Jira admin, you need to ensure that you're A, meeting the business requirements, B, ensuring that the users are kept happy in terms of usability and how the site is maintained. And also with users, you also need to ensure that appropriate level of Jira access is given to the users. With this comes the question of groups versus project roles and which to use. Best practices suggest that you should use project roles wherever possible and avoid the use of groups, for example, in issue level security and issue level security and permission schemes. But for example, in one of our clients, a British-based bank, they had a unique requirement where they were creating this HR project with high-level sensitive information, and they only wanted certain people to have the ability to add users to that project. So we set up the project and we set up all their permission schemes and the issue level security, apologies, with groups. So only system admins can add people to those groups and decide who gets access to the project or not. And this is again something that Jira admins need to consider when maintaining an instance or creating an instance from scratch. The final issue that I want to talk about is performing sort of a health check of your Jira instance. And I've split this into two parts. The first is to get a full visibility of an instance health of your instance, because it's quite vital in order to maintain your instance. And getting a clear picture of your instance can be very time consuming, as I have faced in a recent project. Because you need to, it's very difficult to say, but you need to go through a lot of navigation pages to get different configuration settings, to check if some things are being used, some things have been duplicated. You can use a lot of REST API calls to get information from that as well. And in general, sort of to identify these areas of improvement optimization can be very time consuming. And with this poor visibility, it leads to a delay in big decision makings in order to, for instance, in our case, we've had so much reused configuration, or rather reused duplicate configuration, that we've had to delay other projects until this health check has taken place and we've remediated any issues found. With the visibility of your instance health, we move on to the next topic, is keeping your instance clean. Next slide, please. Yes. In general, we recommend having a clean ever so often of your instance. And one of the things with cleaning your instance up is it's not always an easy and straightforward process. It is time consuming and resource consuming. In our case, with this client, it hasn't been cleaned for about 2 to 2.5 years. And lack of visibility of configuration makes this even more challenging for admins. One of the methods that my colleagues Tom and Craig will be talking about later is quite a useful tool in order to help us sort of verify the health checks that we've conducted previously, and also help perform some of the configuration changes that are needed, which I'm pretty sure my colleagues Tom and Craig will discuss further. Moving on to this is, why are these things important? And my colleague Craig will speak a bit more about it.
Thank you, Akshar. So yeah, as Akshar said, why are these challenges important? Well, first off, they have a direct impact on the ability for Jira admins to be successful in their goals, and some of those are the ones that we alluded to at the beginning. But in addition to that, as we've discussed, it's clear that cloud is here to stay, and there is a significant growth in organizations moving towards the cloud. The challenges that Jira admins face across both cloud and on-premise can be similar, but in some areas they may be slightly different. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Jira admins are absolutely critical to the success of Jira. And as more teams use the cloud, the role of the admin will only grow in importance. So with all of these things being considered, in late 2021, we set off on a journey. And that journey was to make the role of a Jira admin easier and more efficient. And we enlisted the help of one of our much loved marketplace apps, Optimize for Jira, which has been built to help admins configure, maintain, and optimize Jira with ease and confidence. Now, Optimize for Jira excels in 4 core areas. First, it gives you the visibility you need to understand the true health of your Jira instance. It enables you to maintain and manage projects at scale. It will give you some tools to help manage custom fields, which within an on-premise environment is particularly important, but even in cloud, it's still important to understand the custom fields you have and keep good control of those. And then finally, linking back to the cleanup initiatives, cleaning up unused configurations is an important part of a Jira admin's role, and Optimizer comes with a number of tools that can help you with this. So this product was originally launched as a server and then data center application. but we've now completely rebuilt it from the ground up for the cloud. When rebuilding this product, we set off with 3 core goals. First, we wanted to save admins valuable time that can be used where it's most important. In addition to that, we wanted to give admins the information they need to make more informed and confident decisions. And finally, once you've made those decisions, we wanted to give you the tools that you need to enable to make these changes quickly, but also at scale. So I'm delighted to now pass over to my colleague, Tom, who's one of our lead software developers, who will be taking you through a sneak peek of the new version of Optimizer Jira in the cloud. So Tom, I'll pass over to you.
Thanks very much, Craig. Craig, yeah, if you wouldn't mind just stopping sharing your screen, please, so I can share mine. Thanks very much. Cool. So just before I dive into the demo of Optimizer itself, I'll just give a bit of an overview of what exactly I'm going to be demonstrating. So I'll be showing some of the key features of Optimizer for Jira, which address some of the challenges mentioned by my colleague Akshar earlier. So I'll be looking at how Optimizer helps Jira admins get a view of sort of high-level overview of their instance, how it helps admins deep dive into their data and make changes quickly and easily at scale. So I'll just start off by mentioning that Optimizer is accessible in Jira in this top navigation bar just by clicking this apps drop-down menu. And you don't need to worry about sort of non-admin users coming into Optimizer and making any changes they shouldn't be, because it's only visible to admin users. So if I click into Optimizer, this will take me to the home page. So the goal of this homepage is to give you that high-level overview of your system. So it can be quite a challenge, as my colleague Akshar mentioned earlier, in sort of native Jira, having to navigate through multiple different admin panels or running various different scripts to get this sort of high-level overview of what's actually in your Jira instance. So that's the aim of this page. For each of these different objects or configuration items in Jira, we have a tile showing the number of objects of that kind in the instance, as well as a few different suggested actions to help clean up your instance for each of those object types. And as you can see, we've got quite a number of different types of objects here at the moment, but we do have plenty more coming in the short term. And we've also got a number of really exciting new features in development, which will add a lot to this homepage and help give you an even clearer overview of the data in your instance. So yeah, definitely stay tuned. But for now, clicking any one of these tiles will take you to one of Optimizer's smart tables. So if I click on the custom fields tile, for example, this will take me to the custom fields smart table. And the goal with these smart tables is really to help empower admins to make more informed configuration changes and actions. So it does this by sort of gathering data from a few different sources. So some feedback, for example, that we've had is that it's really helpful to have the ID of each custom field readily available. Can be quite a pain to gather those otherwise, as well as having, for example, the issue count of each custom field and having this global versus non-global context data easily available at a glance. Also, these smart tables are highly customizable. And one way of doing that, for example, is to head over to the view menu above each of the tables. And from there, you can hide or show new columns in the table just by clicking these different column names. You can also do that just by dragging the column straight out of the table. And so we're always, looking for ways to improve Optimizer. So if you do try the app out and you don't see a column which would be helpful, then please do let us know just by clicking this feedback link here. So those are the basics of sort of viewing the data in your instance with these smart tables. But Optimizer is not just a tool for viewing data, it also helps you make changes. So there are 2 ways of doing that in Optimizer. We have bulk actions and inline editing. And I'll run through each of those with a typical sort of scenario, starting with bulk actions. So the goal of bulk actions is to help really sort of streamline and make the cleanup process in Jira a bit easier by allowing you to action objects at scale quickly. So this sort of scenario that I'll be going through to demonstrate bulk actions is quite a common one, especially in medium to large size organizations, where over time it's really easy for clutter to build up in your instance. So for example, you might end up over time with a lot of projects with very few or even zero issues, which haven't been updated in a long time. So to identify those in Optimizer, you can use, for example, the issue count and last updated column. And if I sort, for example, by issue count in ascending order, you can see that in this instance, there's a whole bunch of projects with zero issues. So to action those, all you do is select the different projects that you want to apply an action to, head over to the bulk action menu, and there you can see the bulk actions available for the smart table you're on. So in the case of projects, we have permanently delete, move to trash, and archive. So if I select move to trash, for example, you'll see that those three projects have had this red background applied to them. And this indicates that this change, moving those three projects to trash, hasn't actually been saved in Jira yet, but rather those changes have been added to a queue. And so the purpose of that is to act as a bit of a safety net. So you can be sure that the changes you're making are the ones you want to make, and you can align with your team on any changes before actually saving them. So just to sort of show that process again, and also highlight a shortcut, if you click on one project, hold the shift key and click on a second project, it will automatically select all the projects in between for you. And just to apply a different action, I'll choose archive this time. And you can see this time the projects have been highlighted purple, just to indicate that it's a different action. So as you can see as well, this review changes button in the top right here has lit up with 7 changes to indicate the number of items or changes in the queue. And once you're ready, you can come in, click review changes, and this will give you a summary of all the different changes that you've queued up. So for each of the different projects, I see the name here and the change which has been applied. And if you decide for some reason that you don't want to make these changes actually, then you can select the changes you want to discard, click this discard button. And as you can see, those projects which I added to the queue for archiving have been reverted to their initial state and discarded from. So once you make those changes, just head back to the review changes table, click select, save selected changes, and within a few seconds, those will be moved to trash. So that's the process for bulk actions. Now moving on to inline editing, which is a really cool new feature we're excited about. Again, the goal there is to help admins make sort of quick on-the-fly edits, and it's a real time saver. So the sort of example scenario I'll be going through for this one is, imagine one of your colleagues has just left your organization and you need to go through and update the projects that they were the lead of. So this can be a bit of a pain natively in Jira, going to each of the projects and updating the lead there. But in Optimizer, it's as simple as just double clicking on the lead of the project you want to change and selecting a new user. So again, this change of the lead has not been saved straight away in Jira, but it's been added to that review changes queue. And just to sort of show that process again, just double click, select a new user, and it works pretty much the same way for various columns. So anytime I hover over a cell and I get this sort of slightly dark gray background, that indicates that the cell is inline editable. So if I double click here, a slightly different editor for this text field, just a simple text editor, change that again. This change hasn't been sort of saved straight away, but added to that queue as indicated by the orange marker in the top right. So again, once you're happy with some changes, you can come to the review changes table and see that summary of the changes before saving them. And here is where the sort of current and new value columns come into play. They're not used for bulk actions, but for inline editing, you can see a summary of the the fields that you edited and the old value and the new one you set through inline editing. So again, just a few seconds and those changes will go through and be saved in Jira. So yeah, so those are some of the key features of Optimizer. We've seen sort of getting that system overview on the homepage, deep diving into data with the smart tables and making changes quickly and easily at scale with bulk actions and inline editing. There's a bunch of other cool features of Optimizer. And as I mentioned, lots of interesting new features coming soon. But yeah, we don't quite have time to go through all of them in this presentation. But if you'd like to learn a bit more, then please do stop by our booth where you can book a one-to-one demo with us and we can go into a bit more detail. I'll just show one last feature quickly. While I'm here, I'll just head over to the active workflows table to illustrate this feature, which is what we call the sort of deep dive components. So these boxes here are those deep dive components, and they allow you to see the sort of dependencies or related objects for each of the objects, so workflows in this case. So clicking on those, I can see the statuses and transitions associated with each workflow. So that pretty much wraps it up for the demo. So I will head back, pass back to my colleague Craig now.
Thank you, Tom. I'll just share my screen again, make sure I'm doing the right one. Perfect. Okay. The screen should be sharing again now. So yeah, thank you, Tom. Really appreciate you taking the time to run through the demo. So as Tom covered off, when we set off on this journey to reinvent Optimizer, we had those 3 goals. First one being saving valuable time for Jira admins. And as you've seen in the demonstration, that's achieved through providing that instance at a glance view on the homepage, but also giving you bulk actions so you can make those changes quickly and at scale across a number of either projects or different Jira configurations. In addition to that, we wanted to empower admins to make more informed and confident decisions. And this has been made possible through the smart tables and assembling the data that you need through the different columns, of which we are adding more all the time. And the deep dive feature, which you saw just at the end with workflows, where you can see the different statuses, transition, and other related objects for workflows, and also a number of other configurations in Jira. And finally, as Tom showed, we now want to enable admins to make changes quickly and at scale. And this has been made possible through bulk actions and the innovative inline editing feature, which we're very excited for. So we're very excited for the future of Optimizer for Jira in the cloud. We are optimistic that this can change the future of Jira administration for a number of people. And as our head of product at Appfox has said, whilst maintaining the health of a Jira system can sometimes be challenging, with Optimizer, we are aiming to give you more of a holistic view of your configurations in Jira, but also empower you to make those effortless bulk changes at scale. So Optimizer for Jira, the new version in the cloud that you've just seen, is available in the marketplace today. As with any Atlassian marketplace application, you can get a 30-day free trial through the marketplace. So I would highly recommend you take advantage of that. But as I mentioned right at the beginning, we are also offering a limited number of 12-month free licenses for Optimizer, whether that's the cloud version you've seen today or the data center version that we also have. To be entered into that, you have to visit our booth at the JiraCon event. So please stop by, say hello, and you'll be entered into the draw to win. But before finishing there, we have just covered obviously Optimizer for Jira, but it's not just always about the tools that you use, and Optimizer is obviously one of many tools that you can use in your day-to-day job. It's also about the approach, and the approach that you take as a Jira administrator is key. And we wanted to take this opportunity to share some top tips and learnings that we've had from a number of years' experience throughout the teams and the company. And we have 3 top tips that we just wanted to cover off today. Some of these will link back to Optimizer, and Optimizer can potentially help you with these. So tip number 1, with Jira administration, it's always better to be proactive rather than reactive. And we'll cover more of this in a second. Standardize where possible. Akshar talked about the kind of balance between standardization versus customization, and we've got a few tips around that. And then finally, performing routine cleanups. And again, Optimizer lends itself very strongly to the cleanup process. So starting off with tip number 1, being proactive and not reactive. So there's 3 parts to this. Number 1 is monitoring. So it's about getting a really good understanding of your system and your instance, and identifying areas that you may want to focus on, areas of optimization as well. We do have a resource that's completely free. There's a QR code on the screen, but it's also available at our booth for you to download. It's a short document, but it covers all the core objects and configurations in your Jira instance. And again, it's a really easy way for you to go through, and you might identify some areas of potential improvement and optimization. So it's a great resource, completely free, and would highly recommend taking a look to download. This resource can also help you identify those potential issues so you can deal with them before they become problems in the future. And again, maintaining that kind of more proactive approach versus reactive. And then in terms of optimization, the goal with optimization is to reduce the complexity. So as Akshar mentioned, with the natural growth of a Jira system, it's likely that some complexity will naturally creep in, and that's very normal. But the ongoing optimization will help you keep on top of that and reduce complexity where possible and make your life as a Jira admin a little bit easier. So tip number 2, as Akshar said, there was this it's a balance to be had between kind of standardization and customization. And as we know, Jira is an incredible tool and it offers an almost endless amount of customization for your teams, which is great. So standardize where possible is probably one of our biggest recommendations, but also allow the flexibility where it counts. So you may have teams or projects that require a little bit more customization, and that's fine. Just make sure that if you take a more standardized approach, you allow that flexibility in there to accommodate those requests where it's appropriate. Secondly, managing the requests centrally. So again, speaking to a number of colleagues, relying on things like email and instant messenger and even conversations in the office to talk around different configuration changes is probably not always the best way. Take advantage of some of the tools that you have available to centralize that process, whether that's Jira Service Management or even some of the built-in forms that you can have now in Jira. Again, that will make it more centralized for you and your admin colleagues and make the process easier to manage overall. And then finally, choose the best approach for you. So as I mentioned, the beauty with Jira is that there is no one size fits all. It's very customizable, and you should choose the approach that's best for you. We have a number of people watching this session right now, and the chances are everyone's going to have a slightly different approach, and that's fine. Choose the approach that's best for you and best for your organization, and you won't go too far wrong. And then finally, performing routine cleanup. So I mentioned right back at the beginning, the Jira admin is key to making sure that an organization gets the return on investment in Jira, and the routine cleanups is an important part of that. We would always suggest aiming for regular cleanups, whether that's monthly, quarterly, or once a year, with also ongoing optimization in between. We're not going to dive into too much detail around that now. We did do a presentation on Jira cleanup best practices at JiraCon last year, which is now available on YouTube, so definitely recommend taking a look at that. And finally, before we close out for Q&A, there are a number of resources available that can help you in your day-to-day job. So first off, if you wanted any support or guidance with anything you've heard today, or as a Jira administrator, you just wanted a bit of guidance and advice from some experts, then the team at Automation Consultants offer a free consultation, which is a really fantastic resource. So we'd highly recommend getting involved with that. In addition to that, we have a number of experts in the Jira field, and one of them, Buhl-Nielson, is speaking at JiraCon today. A fantastic resource. Definitely recommend checking out his website, in addition to other great experts, including Rachel, Ravi, and Jimmy, and there are many more. And then finally, with the Atlassian community, we are very blessed that we have such an engaged and an active community. So if you have general questions, you again can post your questions there, start a discussion. There's always people on hand to help. So yeah, there's lots of resources to help you if you need it. And with that being said, we've got about 10 minutes left. So if there is any questions, then we will open it up now for that. So yeah, I'll take a look at the chat and see if there's any questions. Okay, we've had 2 questions so far. I'll answer those 2 first off, and then if there's any others, please send them across. So the first question is, when does the newer version of Optimizer get released? The version is now available on the Atlassian marketplace. It was released earlier last week, so it's brand new. And as I say on the previous slide, you can get the 30-day free trial. And if you wanted to deep dive into it a little bit more with a member of our team, just reach out to us and we're happy to help. And the second question I can see is, can we export the data into a CSV or Excel format? So yes, you can. So on the smart tables in the bottom right-hand corner, there is an export button. So with any of those smart tables, you can export that data into Excel. So if you wanted to do some additional filtering and sorting, you can easily do that. And Optimizer makes that possible for you. Those are all the questions I can see right now, unless anyone's got any additional ones to add. Okay, no problem. So given there are no other questions, if any come up over the rest of JiraCon, or if you want to speak to us directly, by all means, please feel free to visit our booth. So yeah, as I say, please visit our booth. We have a virtual exhibition booth at JiraCon, like many of the other sponsors. This is where you can set up a one-to-one with any of our speakers. We can also talk through Optimizer a bit more, or Jira administration in general. As I say, please do visit the booth. It's your opportunity to win one of the 12-month free licenses for Optimizer for Jira. And if you're watching this on demand or after the event and you have any questions, by all means, please do reach out to us via email, and the email address is on the screen there, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But on behalf of the whole team, it's been a pleasure to speak to you today. Thank you for taking the time to join us. And yeah, we hope you enjoy the rest of JiraCon, and thank you for joining.
I believe we've had another question on how can we apply for the 12 months? How do you apply for the 12 months? Right.
Yeah, the 12 months is if you attend our virtual booth, you'll go into the draw, if you like, to win one of the 12-month licenses. So yeah, just pop along to our exhibition booth in the expo hall. Thank you.